Alrighty, guys. And we're going to be using the camera up here for the majority, guys. So whenever you're talking to people, hi, everyone. My name is Alberto Coronado, and I'm the media director for the Quidditch Post. I'm sitting here with three fantastic gentlemen, two in person and one over live stream straight from Mexico, to talk a little bit about Quidditch on an international stage. Now, I know several of y'all were anticipating us talking about either the Northeast, the Great Lakes, or the Midwest. The three other regions besides the Southwest that made it to the Elite Eight at the USQ Quidditch, or the US Quidditch Cup 10. But we're going to do a little bit of a side shift for this. With the upcoming Quidditch Cup in Mexico that is going to take place about, a month?
June 10th.
Yes, June 10th. Thank you, Mr. Adrian. And us being a little bit more than a month away from the April 8th and 9th Quidditch Cup that happened over in Kissimmee, Florida. So we want to talk a little bit about how we're feeling in the U.S. after this Cup, and a little bit on the Mexico side of what we can anticipate or see from the players and teams that are provided. I know that the Black Sabres of Mexico and the Quetzalcoatl Warriors are really going to fight it out as two of the top teams within Mexico. So we're going to talk to a little bit about Mexico Quidditch with our guests here, and a little bit of U.S. Quidditch with our domestic hosts and players in the United States. Guys?
Howdy, I'm Adrian Martinez. Y'all know me from all previous podcasts. I am a beater for the Silver Phoenix. And that sums it up.
Yeah. Using Adrian time or two.
I'm also deputy media director. There you go.
Don't forget that.
How can I not?
Oh yeah, it's part of our lives.
All right, howdy. I'm Daniel. You might know me as Papi Chulo, but yeah, maybe not. Played for Texas A&M Quidditch for 3 years now, going on 4 next year. I started out as beater, and then I moved to beater and chaser, and then I moved to beater, chaser, keeper, and seeker. And
he's a bit of a utility player.
Yeah, basically. Just put me in whenever you need me. That's about it.
Alrighty, and our guest today, Mr. Ariel.
Yeah, hi, everybody. I'm Ariel Hieblum. I'm in Mexico City, like you all said. I currently play chaser for Guerreros de Quetzalcoatl, the Quetzalcoatl Warriors. And besides my position on the team as a regular old chaser, I'm also the vice president of Quidditch Mexico, and although I don't have an official title, I'm the head of the Metropolitan League in Mexico City.
That's spectacular to hear, sir. Well, we're just going to get started here talking a little bit about the USQ Nationals to start us off, and how we prepared. Well, you got us there, starting with Daniel Sobarzo about A&M a little bit. Now, we touched on this last week, but we just want to make sure that we have a nice little segue between segment to segment. So starting off with the Southwest, Daniel, what was your experience at the USQ National Cup?
At the National Cup, it was honestly better than any of the previous experiences. There was a big kind of like sports complex, and it felt like you were like playing a real sport. And we know that it's hard to make Quidditch make it seem like a real sport, but throwing it into like a sports complex and an actual like park where people go and visit, it makes it feel like a more real thing, real sport. And getting there was a little bit of a hassle with class and having to wait a little bit, but once you get there, it's the greatest experience that you're going to probably experience in Quidditch. And then you just go there and you got to get ready to play for 2 days. And I mean, experience everything while you can, but you got to remember that you're there to play Quidditch as best you can with your team, and you're just there to do what you can to get to the finals and hopefully host a national trophy above your shoulders.
That is very true. Training and practice takes a lot of that. What are a couple of things that y'all did as beaters, because I know that's your primary position, for the Texas A&M team to prepare?
So as beaters, obviously a lot about when to throw rather than how hard to throw. So we really do a lot of mental drills and focus on making the right decisions rather than trying to compensate or like being a little slower. And if you have a strong arm, you can compensate for being in the wrong position. But we're just trying to focus on mainly being in the right position, because if you're in the right position, it makes scoring so much harder for the opposing team.
Okay, so positioning based as opposed to thinking on your feet with situations changing. Make sure that you have your slots, know your zone that you have to cover, and work within whatever throws.
Know exactly where you're going to be and whether you're going to do first beater gets the first pass and the second beater drops to the hoops, or if you're going to split the field in half vertically, horizontally, or however you're going to do it. It's a lot of chemistry with your other beaters, so you got to practice a lot. And because if you don't know the decisions that your other beater is going to make, you're going to make a lot of mistakes throwing two bludgers at one person or not knowing where the other bludger is going to be.
Very fair point.
I also want to ask you, how did you prepare for speaking? Because that was not, you weren't ready for that.
They kind of threw that on you, National, didn't they, Danny?
I don't know. So Sean Church kind of came up to me and was like, hey, do you want to speak? And I was like, I never have, but I can. And then Rachel Nicoletti's dad, one of our super fans.
He's a Quidditch dad.
Kind of just came up and was like, you need to seek because no one's here, and I know you can catch the snitch. So first time I go in, we're playing regionals, and I'm just like, all right, I'm going to go see if I can catch the snitch. And sure enough, I caught it on the second try or something like that, and it was a great feeling, and I was like, well, then I can do this, I guess. I mean, I guess I can seek a little bit, and it just felt really, like, natural, and I was just like, I guess, I don't know. I didn't really prepare too much, but.
Okay, nice. Well, I want to use that as kind of a point to segue over to Mr. Ariel to talk in a little bit about Quidditch Mexico on a national scale. I know that geographic and monetary issues made it difficult for the the Mexico national team to be one of the 21 teams that made it to the U.S. Quidditch Cup in Frankfurt, Germany this past summer. So they were one of the 21 teams that were able to make it. They had a spectacular exhibition game against Poland that they actually lost by 10 points, I believe, after Poland got the snitch grab. They came in.
That was Turkey, but yes.
Turkey. Thank you. Okay, I was trying to remember. Appreciate you, sir.
Yeah.
But going into the next day, y'all had first game of the match was who? Because y'all had Canada next, and then my memory's fading. It was a year ago.
We had Poland. First, then Canada.
Okay, that's where so that was my switch up. Poland and Canada. Y'all did a great job with Poland. Then Canada shut y'all out, doing kind of the same thing that what y'all did to them, score differential wise. And y'all's last game was against Catalonia, right? It was really the closest game of pool play day.
Yeah, that's right. We went in. I personally was like very excited for the Turkey game because I know that Turkey is one of the, or at that point, was one of the better teams in Europe. I know they still are. So I was really looking forward to matching up the skill level of those of us that could travel with Turkey, and I was glad to see that we dominated the game mostly, that we were up for most of the game, and we did lose by 10 points. They deserved it. They played really well as well. But I think we all came out of that exhibition game feeling really happy with what we had done. And we had proven that we were a contender for a pretty good spot. And then later on, as you said, day one of World Cup went pretty well. We won 2 of our 3 games. We never realistically expected to go in to beat Canada, but we still played really well. I think that we were all very happy with all of those games. And then Catalonia, it was our last game. It was a long game, and we came out of that having learned our lesson against Turkey. Going into maybe a bit of strategy against Turkey, when Snitch came on pitch, we concentrated on the Snitch, even though we were up by quaffle points. So when Catalonia came around, we were up by quaffle points as well when the Snitch came on. And we decided, no, we're not going to make the same mistake. We're going to concentrate on our quaffle play, which is why the game lasted so long, but ultimately it paid off.
And that's great to hear. Did y'all practice this or prepare a lot beforehand for this type of strategy? Kind of just going back to the community teams and the individual teams that are about to go compete in the Quidditch Cup Mexico.
Yeah, we did. So of the 21 players there were 19 of us. Of the 19 players who traveled to Germany, about, I think, 5 played for Quaternions Tijuana.
Okay.
So they practiced on their own. 5 played for USQ in different teams in USQ, but who are Mexican. Those are from Mexico City, with the exception of one who was from Querétaro. So everyone who was in Mexico City, we would train. I think we trained. We didn't train. We never trained, but we played together against other teams, and that was a good way to get to know each other, to practice. And then strategically, we talked about it a lot during our time in Frankfurt, and we left it up to our captain to make the biggest of strategic decisions on the spot. Our captain was Jesus Rosas, who plays for Quaternions Tijuana. He's one of the founding members, I believe. And yeah, we went away really happy with that.
That's great to hear. I know it was really hard with the geographic and monetary issues that really plague Mexico to get teams and players together. I actually was going to try to get down to a fantasy tournament that y'all had in Mexico City during this past summer. And yeah, like, all excited about it. Had my family raring and ready to go. We changed our schedule a little bit around it, and then it got moved a week later, about halfway through the trip. So I was really sad I wasn't able to play with you and see how the Black Sabres and the Quetzalcoatl guys just actually get on the pitch and play down there. It was amazing just the different atmosphere, the coastal or climate that you get down in Mexico and how that might affect the game. I know there are teams up in the Midwest region, up in the Great Lakes region that have a hard time practicing because of snow, because of weather, because of all these other things that make it impossible to play. That's a different thing in Mexico. What are some of the troubles that y'all have with playing on the pitch, especially preparing together as teams for the National Cup?
So I think that one of the big differences between playing in the US and playing in Mexico is that in Mexico, there's one sport that's far above all others, which is soccer. And everything that's not a soccer pitch isn't in great shape. So it's hard to find training spots. When Quidditch Mexico is making tournaments, it's more difficult to find good places to practice with quality pitch. But in general, I think it works out pretty well. Every team has found, or I can speak mostly for Mexico City, which is most of the teams in Mexico. I'll just give you some background. Right now in Quidditch Mexico, there's 8 teams. We're expecting 8 teams in our national tournament, which is coming up in a month, like you said.
Whoop, whoop.
5 are in Mexico City. 1 is in Querétaro, 1 is in Toluca, and 1, of course, are the Quaternions from Tijuana. So of those 5 teams, they've all found different places around the city to practice. And what we've tried to do to take advantage of the fact that there's so much density in the city is to have a league, a regular league. So we play round robin, everyone plays against everyone else. And then we proclaim a league champion.
Okay.
And that's what happened. That happened yesterday, actually. Yesterday was our last set of games. And Black Sabres are the champions again. They've been 3-time champions. Congratulations to them. They went away undefeated. And yeah, they're a good contender for the national title, as well as Quaternions Tijuana. Of course, they always kind of sneak up on us, but we can't deny that they're the team with the most experience in Mexico. They're the team that has the most geographic proximity to better teams, which are in San Diego, LA, lots of California. So they get to practice against teams in California pretty often, and that, I feel, also helps them a lot, even though they don't have any teams within Quidditch Mexico to train against. So it's an interesting balance between, are Mexico City teams better because they play against each other all the time, or is Tijuana better because they have the experience and they have the proximity to California? So we'll see in a month where that works out. Our first national tournament, Tijuana won by a landslide. Our second national tournament was a huge upset, and a Mexico City team actually beat them in the finals.
Oh, dang. Wow. Upsets all over the world with Quidditch right now. I think it's really helping that these developed countries are starting to have people with experience and practice and being on the pitch. Adrian, you got something to say?
I was just wondering, what are the Guerreros of Quetzalcoatl doing to take home the National Cup?
So we practice every week. We have 10 intense practices, something that we've done this year. I believe it's this year. Maybe it was slightly before the last nationals. No, it's this year. So since the last nationals up till now, I'm non-playing coach.
Full-time non-playing coach. Sorry, we're losing you for a little bit, Mr. Ariel.
Really helps us and because always.
One second. Seems like we're having a little technical difficulties right here. Internet connections going from College Station down to Mexico can be a little patchy.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay,
we lost your camera for now, but I think we might just leave it on audio. That way we can make sure we have better audio quality from you, Mr. Ariel.
Sure. So what I was saying is that the Guerreros, we have a full-time non-playing coach, which is great because she can see things from an outsider's perspective. I think in all sporting situations, it's always good to have somebody who's not on the pitch tell you what they see and what they think we need to improve. So that's one of the big changes that we've made on my team to get better for nationals.
I definitely agree with you. I really think that when someone is outside of the pitch, can really see something that players may not be able to see.
Yeah.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Coaching from the sidelines, being able to train when you have the experience and being able to watch. All right, so I think this is going to be a nice little opportunity to take us to a little rapid-fire session. Andy Marmer, one of our CEOs here at the Quidditch Post, really helped give us this segment when we were talking to the different regions and teams that we're going to be playing in the USQ Cup 10. We did a little bit of a preview series trying to highlight all the regions that we're going to attend because Quidditch can get so different based on geography. Teams that play in the Southwest can play a much different atmosphere and tone than a team in the Midwest, Northeast, or Great Lakes. The Nationals in the U.S. are one of the few times we actually get to see this on a big stage with proper equipment that can do live streaming that just gets the people there, because otherwise we just have small tournaments. We have fantasy tournaments. We keep trying to do this over and over, but no one has the equipment right now, the capital to get us consistent film and show it on a national or even international scale. YouTube and game film that people take on site, edit, and produce have been one of the greatest ways and most amazing things to me about Quidditch and helping it grow. It gives coaches the opportunity to go back and look at how teams played, discover whether they need a more aggressive or defensive offense style, change things up against different teams instead of just cementing themselves into a zone or one type of offense and defense and playing whatever's thrown at them. I know it was a difficulty for Mexico on the international stage, trying to compete with players once again that weren't close to each other. Geography played a big role in how they had to respond on the pitch. It was the same thing for America. We had an incredibly difficult time playing on the world stage because these players had only been together, I believe, twice. They just did a little bit of pressing and not as much intensity as you would expect from a team competing on a national stage. It really needs to build that quickness, that readiness with your teammates, with players that you play with on a weekly basis, 3, 4, 5 times. One of the greatest things that I love about A&M and Silver Phoenix being so close to one another as teams is that even if one team doesn't have enough people that show up for practice, you only have 3 or 4 people that show up because they're busy, the real world life sets in. They still have the pool and the opportunity to play with more Quidditch players that are raring and ready to go. Some of the passion that I really liked from Silver Phoenix, that they got up there and played with the A&M players. I know that there was a big dispute between secondary and first teams. I don't really like to call them B teams, but the players that are in the same area that offsprout from a main school. Silver Phoenix from A&M, the San Marcos Sharknadoes from Texas State, that still produce amazing programs. I mean, look at Texas State making it all the way to the finals, and then people try to underwrite the Sharknadoes all the time as just not competing, a team that can't play. Are there a couple teams in the Mexico realm that are really underrated in your opinion, Mr. Ariel?
Well, I think there were. I think that when last nationals came around, people expected Guerreros de Quetzalcoatl and to be like the undeniable contenders for the championship, and actually the champions ended up being somebody else, the Los Nueve Tres Cuartos Quidditch team. So there's definitely teams. There's teams in all stages of growth. I'd say there's some teams that are growing. The teams in Toluca and Querétaro, especially, they're the only teams in those cities. So like you were saying, they don't have the benefit of playing against somebody else that's nearby. That's why we always try and host them at least once per league here in Mexico City. And so it's hard for them to grow. And there's also some teams here in Mexico City that are growing. I'd say they're in their growth stage. Seems like Encantatum or Chintolobos. And then you've got teams that have been around for a longer time Black Sabres, Guerreros de Quetzalcoatl, and Los Nueve Tres Cuartos are all three teams that have been around since Quidditch started here in Mexico City in 2014. And then you've got Tijuana, which has been around since 2011. So there's definitely teams in all stages of growth, and teams that some of them also, like, I think that everywhere in the world there's teams that take it more seriously and teams that, this is a fun sport, we're going to get together and play as a hobby, we're going to get together with my friends and play this fun new sport. And then there's teams that are really trying, and I think that we need both types of teams to grow.
Yeah, I would certainly agree. Mr. Sobarzo, would you mind telling us about a few of the teams that you believe are underrated or really up and coming in the last couple of seasons as you've been playing? Not just Southwest region, but the United States as a whole. I'm trying to talk about that whole nation.
Jeez. Well, I'll start with the Southwest region. Tech surprised me this year for sure.
Yeah, they came out hitting.
Sam Houston came out strong. Texas State has always been strong since I've been here. TU's always been strong.
They've been falling. That's the University of Texas, for those not Nagy land, because we have a little bit of a rivalry against that university in Austin. Little T, little U, whenever you're referring to them in Nagy land.
And I'd say from other regions, the Gambits have been
absolutely
very strong.
Mm-hmm. Jesus.
They have a really good just main player that knows how to coach their team.
Oh, what?
Solid guy
Tony?
in general.
Tony Rodriguez.
Alberto.
Really good. Oh, yeah.
You
Oh, my
would
God.
beat her.
Yeah.
Beautiful collection of players on Gambit.
Yeah.
I can agree with that.
Maryland is really good. They won last year?
Yeah.
Boston.
Boston won last year. Ariel, did you play for the Gambit this past season, or was it the year before? Wasn't there a national team in the U.S. that you competed for before leaving Rice?
Yeah, so it was Rice University. Back in 2012 and 2013, Rice University had a Quidditch team, and I was on it for that 1 year before graduating. And then unfortunately, once my generation graduated, the team kind of fell apart. But that's where I got my Quidditch beginnings.
Very unfortunate to hear. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off a little bit, Daniel. Any other teams, Adrian, Daniel, I'd like to highlight up and coming? I know it's just racking my brain because, again, if you can't see behind us, we have the bottom part of a wall that we like to use to keep track of teams from all around the country. We like to break them up by region so we can see how the teams compete both in their region and once they step outside of it. There are a couple teams, like you were talking with, the Tijuana guys that crossed over to the United States. There are some teams in the north that will actually try and play with different Canadian teams. There have been a couple of rules as of late and team restrictions that have prevented teams from playing with one another, at least as official games. The bureaucracy.
Yeah, and well, there's also, sorry to cut you off.
Don't mind at all. Please step in, sir.
There's also a relatively recent rule that we got together with USQ to limit players from playing in both leagues. Players who live near the border. You were talking about the Gambits. Wow. I just wanted to mention that at the time that when we went to Frankfurt last summer, we had a Gambits player who's now playing for Black Sabres.
Okay. Interesting turn of events.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have thought of
His
that.
name is Ricardo Ariola. He lives in Tijuana, but doesn't play for Quaternions Tijuana. He actually plays for a Mexico City team, and he travels down here for important games.
That is really interesting. I'm not going to speak about underrated teams because that's going to be biased.
Oh, yeah.
But I do want to ask, in your experience with the Southwest, what's your general opinion about the Southwest? What teams do you like? What teams do you have fun playing against? So on and so forth.
So the year that I played, Rice University is in Houston, so we had a pretty close, not rivalry, the opposite of rivalry. I'd say we were pretty close to the Sam Houston team. And also at the time that I was living in Houston, the Rice team got some coaching and support from Molly Lensing, who now obviously plays for Lone Star. So ever since then, I'm like a huge Lone Star / Molly fan.
Sorry, just making me blush a little bit here because, I love that LSQC. All of those players are so amazing to play with. So I'm glad that on an international stage to hear good things about them and what they've been doing in their past with other Quidditch players that have really started to see the world in a whole different light now. getting to move away. I can't.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Can't even imagine the experience of going from Rice down to play Quidditch in Mexico. The different just atmosphere change. It feels weird going to Colorado for a Mile High Fantasy tournament just to experience the different atmosphere of a region within the U.S. I can't imagine an international change like that.
Well, the change was because in Mexico City at the time I moved, there was no Quidditch. So I got together with the current GMX and we started a league here in Mexico City. So before 2014, there was no Quidditch activity here in Mexico City, and now we've got 5 teams.
Very impressive, sir. Wow. That's actually absolutely flabbergasting. As a building point, let's do a little bit more of that rapid fire. Switching on over to Daniel for a second. What is your favorite practice technique? Whether it is a drill, something that you have players do, or it's just running around lines until they're tired. What's one of those things at practice that you like to do or think that can really help improve to build something that is more than just a group of people coming together, being a Quidditch team, a lot like Ariel was just talking with, building teams from the ground up. Good way for players to start.
I'd say probably the drill that we do the most, the drill that really helps us out the most is 4v3. Basically have 4 chasers, 3 chasers, 1 keeper, and they try to score on 2 beaters and a keeper. So it just helps with you creating half-court offense and helping your beaters be in the right position for defense. So it works on 2 things at one time. It's a really efficient drill, and it's one of our pregame warm-up drills just because it gets you in the right mindset. And
teaches you to be aggressive but careful, how to really pull those bludgers away and start as a chaser negotiating with the beaters and having your little dance of trying to avoid the beats or their dance of Daniel hurting people.
And then you just have, sometimes you just got to do smart throws. You got to know when to throw it, where to be, and when you don't have a ball, when you only have 1 bludger, where like you should be blocking the other 2 beaters from getting to your beater. You got to protect them.
Okay, I like that. Adrian, favorite personal drill?
Well, that's hard to say because Coach Ryan Bobbitt, he comes up with really...
He does come up with some oddball ones, really
Yeah.
situational. And that's what I say that I've noticed from the silver beaters and how they practice is he likes to put them in very strange situations and see how they as players think and negotiate around it, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Okay.
But we also do drills that A&M does, like 4v3 or the church drill. We use them at least once per practice just to get us in the right mindset.
Okay, so the similarities between Texas A&M and Silver Phoenix's practice style certainly say that on the field y'all play pretty similarly against teams outside of the region.
Right.
Y'all have a lot of the same skills and strategy sets. Mr. Ariel, any particular practice or technique that you really encourage to your team?
I have to agree with Daniel. I think that isolating situations is really useful. So having, we even do smaller than 4v3. We go 2 chasers against a chaser and a keeper, or 2 chasers against a beater and a keeper. And it helps to isolate situations so that when you're in a game, you're like, okay, all this stuff is going on, and you don't have the space to practice on a regular pitch. So when you're playing on a full-size pitch, sometimes it can throw you off a little bit. But having that practice, having that experience from isolating situations, like it's just me and 1 other chaser up against their keeper, I think that's really useful.
Okay.
It creates muscle memory, so you don't have to think as much during the game, and you just know
That's right.
what to do.
That's absolutely true.
All right, well, we're just now getting to about the end of the time we have slotted off for this week's installment of the QP Today. We're going to go around with final thoughts. I'll give first my personal favorite practice technique, but just leading this off. Then we're going to go around and talk about just anything that someone would like to say to the Quidditch community, both in the U.S. and Mexico, as we continue this month of Quidditch here at the QP. We have a fantastic new website that we're going to be streaming this from next week. Make sure that we can get everything embedded in, and that way we can show everyone Quidditch on an international and national scale. Bring it a little closer into your pitch, into your realm of magical Quidditch. I'd have to agree with Daniel and Ariel with the 3v2. I like it a lot. It teaches you how to navigate around the beaters. It forces you to be advantageous. It forces you to go up against someone that you know can take you out of the game like that. You have to constantly be ready to dodge. You have to be ready to get a catch, pass it away, and do what you can to get that beater to fail, get them to miss you, get them to release the ball or pump fake way too much, and get them off their rhythm. I think it's a great way to get you in the moment and get you into a lot of different scenarios without having a specific drill for each one. It's a great utility drill, in my opinion, for new and budding teams or for experienced ones. Lone Star ran it plenty of times. It was something that we practiced as a warm-up every time we saw us on the pitch. It's just a fundamental that teaches muscle memory and is a great part of Quidditch. Great way to learn. I guess leading off things I'd like to say to Quidditch community, thanks for tuning in, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure. Make sure to check out the game film and the other podcasts that we have from all over the world. We have EQC, Quidditch Canada. Now we have a little bit of Mexico and US Quidditch galore. So please check that out at thequidditchpost.com.
Sorry about that, little technical difficulties, and anywhere else in between. Mr. Adrian?
One thing that I really love about this community is the inclusiveness, but not just, now it's expanding into internationally. I'm pretty sure I've talked in this podcast plenty of times before that I am a big fan of Quidditch Mexico, and my goal is to play with them in 2018. That is my main goal.
Beat you, Team USA. See you next World Cup.
I mean, I'll be waiting for you at the top.
Oh, smack talk. Let's hear it. Mr. Daniel?
Well, something that came up while you were talking about doing the drills and isolating just situations is, I think a lot of Quidditch is thinking about what you're going to do in the future, how far ahead you can think, but still accomplishing every step along the way. So you have a final goal, a final end goal that's in the future, but you have to do little things to get there. So that's really what it is how far ahead can you think to just be ahead of your opponent. But other than that, for Quidditch, I love being a part of it. It's kind of fun being a part of a real sport and like a magical sport. Makes me like have a nice little balance between the two. Well, for those of y'all that don't know, I play on the Texas A&M club basketball team. So that's what I meant by real sport and magical sport. So I love the way that Quidditch is just growing, and I love the fact that I'm in the middle of it, right in the middle of. I feel like it's gonna like increase exponentially in awareness, people that play, and just like everything about it, I think will increase quickly in the near future.
Well, definitely someone that's spreading things around the world. Do you have anything to say, Mr. Ariel, for Quidditch? Hello, sir?
So I have two things to say. Firstly, on a personal note, I'm, like Daniel said, I'm really, it's really special to be a part of the growth of Quidditch, especially kind of utilizing my position somewhere between the US and Mexico, having some experience playing Quidditch in both countries. I'm really honored to be able to help grow it in Mexico. More importantly than that, I have something very important to say to anybody who might be watching. I think that one of the most important things for growth of Quidditch in the US has been all of the USQ national cups, previously World Cups. And here in Mexico, we're right coming up to our national tournament, June 10th and June 11th in this beautiful city of Querétaro. And we need some help. We need refs. So anyone who may be watching this who has some experience playing, maybe not even experience reffing, but who has some experience playing Quidditch, who knows the rules, who would like to get to know a whole new community of Quidditch players that isn't really that far away from the US. To us, our email is contacto, so contact with an O at the end, contacto @quidditch.mx. Please, if you're at all interested in coming to visit and getting a country full of new Quidditch friends, to grow a league in, well, more than a league, a whole NGB in a neighboring country or not even a neighboring country, we would love to have you. And We're offering some interesting compensation. Anything that you may need, please just let us know. We're to step up the professionalism of our events. And one of the things that's necessary for that is to have and objective refs. Plug for that, and thank you very much, guys from the Quidditch Post, for having me and for giving me a chance to talk about my experience and my views south of the border. Remember that we're down here. Remember that we're down here and we're growing, and we're gonna have a hard time catching up to you guys, but we're on our way, and hopefully soon we'll be there.
If I could just ask you one more question, what would you say, besides sending refs to Mexico, how can the U.S. Quidditch people in the community just help y'all out the most? Like, what would be the number one thing that we could?
I think it would be really cool, honestly, to have interest. So all the teams have Facebook pages, all the teams have, and every time somebody says like that, like a shout out to Black Sabres for winning the National League. So I went to MLQ championships last year in August in League City. And I asked my teammates, like, hey, do you guys want me to bring you anything? I'm taking my camera. I can like take a picture of some of the sites in Houston or something. And one of my friends said, hey, if you see Michael Duquette, could you film him and tell him to give me a shout out? And so I found him and I did. And it was like, he was beyond, like, he was in bliss. He was like, what? Michael Duquette knows who I am? Like, so that can be really helpful. And I think that having people in the US who are interested in Quidditch Mexico is going to help spread the word that we're down here, that we're playing, that we're doing a regular league, that we have a regular national championship. And that's going to eventually reach the ears of somebody who's interested in coming down, who's interested in helping us out.
That's fantastic to hear. Thank you, Daniel. That was a fantastic question. Oh my God. Well, that's going to wrap us up here for the Quidditch Post today in the month of May. Make sure to tune in next Monday. Sorry we were a little late on this one. We tried to start at 6 o'clock. There was a little technical difficulty with our internet. It has been a spectacular time talking to you guys, getting around and getting to talk about Quidditch both in the U.S. and in Mexico. Join us during the rest of the week at QuidditchPost.com to view spectacular articles, videos, and everything you could ever desire about Quidditch around the world. Thanks, Gig'em, and it's been a pleasure.